Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyata Paragamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saidam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Scha Om Agyana Timaranda Shagyana Jana Shalagaya Chakshuramitam Yena Tasma Shigurave Nama Gurva Bistam Supurakam Ganaras Isha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samastaveda Nipanam Shirupa Patanugam Govindabidam Ujwalam Varatanum Bhaktihan Vidam Sundaram Mande Vishwagurun Shah Divyad Bhagavat Premno Ebija Pradam Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahamananyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaurata Vishay Namah. So we're continuing with a reading of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And this is Madhya-lila chapter 5, the activities of Sakshi-gopal, starting with text number 87. Tabe se chota vipra gela brindavan, dandavat kore kohe sababibaran. After the meeting, the young Brahmin started for Vrindavan. Upon arriving there, he first offered his respectful obeisances to the deity and then narrated everything in full detail. Brahmanya deva tumi boradoya moy dui viprer dharma raka hoya sadoy. He said, "My Lord, you are the protector of Brahminical culture, and you are also very merciful. Therefore, kindly show your great mercy by protecting the religious principles of us two Brahmins. Kanyapab muramane iha nahisuk brahmanera pratigya jai e boraduk." My dear Lord, I am not thinking to become happy by getting the daughter as a bride. I am simply thinking that the Brahmin has broken his promise, and that is giving me great pain. Eta jani tumi saki deho doyamoy, jani saki nashideya tarapap hoy. The young Brahmin continued, "My dear Lord, you are very merciful and you know everything. Therefore, kindly be a witness in this case. A person who knows things as they are and still does not bear witness becomes involved in sinful activities. Krishna kohe bipra tumi jaha swabhabane sabakore more tumi koreya smarane." Lord Krishna replied, "My dear Brahman, go back to your home and call a meeting of all the men. In that meeting, just try to remember me. Avirbhav hoya ami tahai sakidiba tabe dui viprer satya pratigya rakiba." I shall certainly appear there, and at that time I shall protect the honor of both you Brahmins by bearing witness to the promise. Viprabole jari hao chatur bhuja murti tabu tomar bhakye karo nahabe pratigiti. The young Brahmin replied, "My dear Lord, even if you appear there as a four-handed Vishnu deity, still none of those people will believe in your words. E murtigiya jadi e shri babane sakideho jadi tabe sarva lokas shune." Only if you go there in this form of Gopal and speak the words from your beautiful face will your testimony be heard by all the people. Krishna kohe pratima chale kotahan nat shuni viprabole pratima hoya kaha kene bani. Lord Krishna said, "I never heard of a deity walking from one place to another." The Brahmin replied, "That is true, but how is it that you are speaking to me, although you are a deity?" Pratima nahatumi sakat brajendra nandan vipralagi koratumi akarya karan. My dear Lord, you are not a statue. You are directly the son of Nanda Maharaj. Now, for the sake of the old Brahmin, you can do something you have never done before. Hashiya gopala kohe shunaha brahman tomara pache pacheyami koribagaman. Sri Gopalji then smiled and said, "My dear Brahma, just listen to me. I shall walk behind you, and in this way I shall go with you." Ulatiya amatumina Korea darshane amake dekile amir rahiba seistane. The Lord continued, "Do not try to see me by turning around. As soon as you see me, I shall remain stationary in that very place. Nupurer dwani matra amara shuniba se shabde amar gaman pratiti koriba. You will know that I am walking behind you by the sound of my ankle bells. Ek seva ana randi korea samarpan taha kaya tomar sange koriba gaman. Cook 1 kilo of rice daily and offer it. I shall eat that rice and fall behind you. Aradin agya mage chalila Brahman tarapache pache Gopal korila gaman. The next day the Brahman begged permission from Gopal and started for his country. Gopal followed him step by step. Nuparer dhwani shuni ananditaman uttamana pakakori koraya bojan. While Gopal followed the young Brahman, the tinkling sound of his ankle bells could be heard. The Brahmin became very pleased, and he cooked first-class rice for Gopal to eat. Emate chali vipra nija deshiaila gramera nikata ashi monete chindila. The young Brahmin walked and walked in this way until he eventually arrived in his own country. When he neared his own village, he began to think as follows: Ebe mui grame di ainu jaimu baban lokere kohibagia shakira agaman. I have now come to my village, and I shall go to my house and tell all the people that the witness has arrived. Sakate na dekile mane pratiti nahoy ihanjari rohen tabu nahikachuboy. The Brahmin then began to think that if the people didn't directly see the Gopal deity, they would not believe that he had arrived. But even if Gopal stays here, he thought, there is still nothing to fear. Eta babi se vipra firya chahila hashinya Gopala deva tatai rohila. Thinking this, the Brahmin turned to look back, and he saw that Gopal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was standing there smiling. Brahmanere kohetumi jahane jagar etaya rohiba amina jaba atapar. The Lord told the Brahmin, "Now you can go home. I shall stay here and shall not leave." Tabi se viprajai nagare kohila shunya sakala lok chamatkara hoila. The young Brahmin then went to the town and informed all the people about Gopal's arrival. Hearing this, the people were struck with wonder. Aila sakalok saki deki bare Gopala deki lok dandavat kore. All the town people, you can let her in. All the town people went to see the witness Gopal, and when they saw the Lord actually standing there, they all offered their respectful obeisances. Gopal Sundarya Deki Loke Anandita Pratima Shalniya Aila Shunya Bishmita. When the people arrived, they were very pleased to see the beauty of Gopal, and when they heard that he had actually walked there, they were all surprised. Tabise Bora Vipra Nandita Haya Gopalera Agepare Dandavat Haya. Then the elderly Brahmin, being very pleased, came forward and immediately fell like a stick in front of Gopal. Sakala Lokera Age Gopala Sakidila Boravipra Chotavipre Kanyadana Koila. Thus, in the presence of all the townspeople, Lord Gopal bore witness that the elderly Brahmin had offered his daughter in charity to the young Brahmin. Tabise dui vipre kohila ishwar tumi dui janme amara kinkar. After the marriage ceremony was performed, the Lord informed both Brahmins, "You two Brahmins are my eternal servants, birth after birth. Duhara satya tushta hoilan duhe magabar Duivipra Bharamage Ananda Antar. The Lord continued, I become very much pleased by the truthfulness of you both. Now you can ask for a benediction. Thus with great pleasure the two Brahmins begged for a benediction. Jadibar dibitabe rohe estane kinkare doya taba sarva loke jane. The Brahmins said, please remain here so that people all over the world will know how merciful you are to your servants. Gopala rohila duhe korana seban dekite aila sab deshara lokajan. Lord Gopal stayed, and the two Brahmins engaged in his service. After hearing of the incident, many people from different countries began to come to see Gopal. Sedeshara Raja Aila Ascharya Shunya Parama Santosha Paila Gopaledakiya. Eventually the king of that country heard this wonderful story, and he also came to see Gopal and thus became very satisfied. Mandira Koriya Raja Seva Chalaila Sakshi-gopal Boletara Namakyate Hoila. The king constructed a nice temple, and regular service was executed. Gopal became very famous under the name of Sakshi-gopal, the witness Gopal. Emata Vidya Nagare Sakshi-gopal Seva Angikara Kori Achina Chirakal. Thus Sakshi-gopal stayed in Vidyanagar and accepted service for a very long time. Utkalera Raja Purushottama Devanam Sedesha Jini Nila Korea Sangram. Later there was a fight, and the country was conquered by King Purushottama Dev of Orissa. Se Raja Jini Nila Tara Simasana Manika Simasananam Anika Ratana. The king was victorious over the king of Vidyanagar, and he took possession of his throne, the Manikya Simasana, which was bedecked with many jewels. Purushottama Dev se Bora Bhakta Arya Gopala Chanane Mage Chala Mora Raja. When Purushottama Dev King Purushottama Dev was a great devotee and was advanced in the civilization of the Aryans. He begged at the lotus feet of Gopal, please come to my kingdom. Tara Bhakti Bashe Gopal Tare Agyadila Gopala Loya se Katake Aila. When the king begged him to come to his kingdom, Gopal, who was already obliged for his devotional service, accepted his prayer. Thus the king took the Gopal deity and went back to Cuttak. Jagannathe Anidila Manikyasimasan Katake Gopala Seva Korila Stapan. After winning the Manikya throne, King Purushottama Dev took it to Jagannath Puri and presented it to Lord Jagannath. In the meantime, he also established regular worship of the Gopal deity at Cuttak. Tahara Mahishi Aila Gopala Darshane Bhakti Kori Bahu Alankar Koila Samarpane. When the Gopal deity was installed at Cuttak, the queen of Purushottama Dev went to see him, and with great devotion presented various kinds of ornaments. Tahara Nasate Bahumuya Muktahoy Taha Dite Ichahoila Manete Chindaya. The queen had a very valuable pearl, which she bore on her nose, and she wished to give it to Gopal. She then began to think as follows. Takorer nasate jadi chidra takita tabi e dashi mukta nashaye paraita. If there were a hole in the deity's nose, I could transfer the pearl to him. Ete chinti namaskore gela swabhabane ratri seshe gopal tare kohena swapane. Considering this, the queen offered her obeisances to Gopal and returned to her palace. That night she dreamed that Gopal appeared and began to speak to her as follows. That night she dreamed that Gopal appeared and began to speak to her as follows. Balyakale mata mora nasha chidrakori Mukta Paranat Shila Bahu Jatnakori. When I was a child, my mother made a hole in my nose and with great endeavor set a pearl there. Se Chidra Anyapiya Achaye Nasate Se Mukta Paraha Jaha Chahi Jachadite. That very hole is still there, and you can use it to set the pearl you desire to give me. So she was thinking I would like to give a pearl. She had a valuable pearl she wanted to give to the deity. So she was thinking if there was a hole there in the nose of the deity, I could put the pearl there. And that night she dreamed where Gopal told her, when I was a boy, then when I was small, then my mother made a hole in my nose where she put a pearl. So you'll find that hole is there. So Swapni Deki se Rani Rajake Kohila Rajasa Saha Muktaloya Mandire Aila. After dreaming this, the queen explained it to her husband, the king. Both the king and the queen then went to the temple with the pearl. Paraila Mukta Nashai Chidra Dekiya Maha Mahotsava Koila Anandita Haya. Seeing that hole in the nose of the deity, they set the pearl there, and being very pleased, held a great festival. Se hoite gopalera katakete stiti, se lagi Sakshi-gopal nama hoilakyati. Since then, Gopal has been situated in the city of Cuttak, and he has been known ever since as Sakshi-gopal. Nityananda Mukeshuni Gopala Charita Tushta Hoila Mahaprabhu Swabhakta Sahita. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the narration of Gopal's activities. Both he and his personal devotees became very pleased. So they heard the narration of Gopal's activities. It says Nityananda Muke, from the mouth of Nityananda. Nityananda was telling them this story. Gopalera Agejabe Prabhura Hoistiti Bhaktagane Deke Jena Duke Ek Murti. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sitting before the Gopal deity, all the devotees saw him and the deity as being of the same form. So thus Mahaprabhu heard the narration of Gopal's activities from Nityananda Prabhu. Both he and his personal devotees became very pleased. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sitting before the Gopal deity, all the devotees saw him and the deity as being of the same form. Duhe ek barna duhe prakanda sharir duhe raktabara duhar swabhava gambir. They were of the same complexion and both had gigantic bodies. Both wore saffron cloth and both were very grave. Mahate jomoy duhe kamalanayan duhara baba besha duhe chandrabadan. The devotees saw that both Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Gopal were brilliantly effulgent and had eyes like lotuses. They were both absorbed in ecstasy, and both their faces resembled full moons. Duhadeki Nityananda Prabhu Maharange Taratare Korihase Bhaktagana Sange. When Nityananda saw the Gopal deity and Mahaprabhu in that way, he began to exchange remarks with the devotees, all of whom were smiling. Emata Maharangi Se Ratri Banshia Prabhate Chalila Manga Arati Dekiya. Thus with great pleasure, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed that night in the temple. After seeing the Mangala Arati ceremony in the morning, he started on his journey. Bhuvaneshwara Pate Jaiche Koila Darshan Bistari Barni Jachan Dasha Vrindavan. In his book, Chaitanya Bhagavat, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has very vividly described the places visited by the Lord on the way to Bhuvaneshwara. Kamalapuri, Ashi, Barginadi, Snan Koila, Nityananda Hate Prabhu, Danda Darila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at Kamalapur, he took his bath in the Bhargi river and left his sannyas staff in the hands of Lord Nityananda. Kapulteshwara dekite gela bhakta gana sange eta Nityananda Prabhu koila danda bange tinakanda koridanda dila bhashaya bhakta sange aila Prabhu mahesha dekiya. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the temple of Lord Shiva, known as Kapulteshwara, Nityananda Prabhu, who was keeping his sannyas danda, or sannyas staff, in custody, broke the staff in 3 parts and threw it into the river Bhargi Nadi. Later, this river became known as Danda Banga Nadi. The mystery of the sannyas danda of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has been explained by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the order of sannyas from a Mayavadi sannyasi. The Mayavadi sannyasis generally carry 1 staff or danda. Taking advantage of Mahaprabhu's absence, Srila Nityananda Prabhu broke the staff into 3 parts and threw it into the river known as the Danda Banga Nadi. In the sannyas order, there are 4 divisions: Kutichaka, Bahudaka, Hamsa, and Paramahamsa. Only when the sannyasi remains on the Kutichaka and Bahudaka platforms can he carry a staff. However, when one is elevated to the status of Hamsa or Paramahamsa, after touring and preaching the Bhakti cult, he must give up the sannyas staff. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. It is therefore said, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahiyanya. 2 personalities, Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, are combined in the incarnation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, considering Mahaprabhu to be an extraordinary person, Lord Nityananda Prabhu did not wait for the Paramahansa stage. He reasoned that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is automatically on the Paramahansa stage. Therefore, he does not need to carry the sannyas danda. This is the reason Sri Nityananda Prabhu broke the staff into 3 places and threw it into the river. So, Jagannatara de Jula deki avishta hoila dandavat kori preme nachite lagila. After seeing the temple of Jagannath from a distant place, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately became ecstatic. After offering obeisance to the temple, he began to dance in the ecstasy of love of Godhead. Bhaktagan abhishtahaya savinachegai primaveshe prabhu sange rajam margajai. All the devotees became ecstatic in the association of Lord Chaitanya, and thus absorbed in love of God, they were dancing and singing while going along the main road. Ashikande nache prabhu hunkara garjan tina krosh bhatohoila sahasra jojan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu laughed, cried, danced, and made many ecstatic vibrations and sounds. Although the temple was only 6 miles away, to him the distance seemed thousands of miles. Chalite chalite Prabhu aila ataranala tahanashi Prabhu kichu baya prakashila. Thus, walking and walking, the Lord eventually arrived at the place known as Ataranala. Arriving there, he expressed his external consciousness, speaking to Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda kohe Prabhu dehom mora danda, Nityananda bole danda, hoila tina kanda. When Mahaprabhu had thus regained external consciousness, he asked Lord Nityananda Prabhu, please return my staff. Nityananda Prabhu then replied, it has been broken into 3 parts. Premaveshe padila tumi tomaradani nu, Toma Saha Sedandu Pare Parinu. Nityananda Prabhu said, when you fell down in ecstasy, I caught you, but both of us together fell upon the danda, upon the staff. Dui Janar Baridanda Kanda Kanda Hoila Sekunda Kaha Padila Kichuna Janila. Thus the staff broke under our weight. Where the pieces have gone, I cannot say. Mora aparade tomar danda hoila kanda, je uchita hoi mora kora taradanda. It is certainly because of my offense that your staff is broken. Now you can punish me on this account as you think proper. Shuni kichu Mahaprabhu dukkha prakashila ishat kroda kori kichu kohite lagila. After hearing the story about how his staff had been broken, the Lord expressed a little sadness and, displaying a bit of anger, began to speak as follows. Nila chali ani mora sabe hita koila sabe danda dana chila tahana rakila. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you have all benefited me by bringing me to Nilachala. However, my only possession was that one danda, that one staff, and you have not kept it. Tumi sab age jaha ishwara dekite kiba ami age jai na jab sahite. So all of you should go before me or behind me to see Lord Jagannath. I shall not go with you. So in other words, Mahaprabhu didn't really believe the story of how his danda had broken. So all of you should go before me or behind me to see Lord Jagannath. I shall not go with you. Mukunda datta kohe Prabhu tumi jaha age ami sab pache jab na jab tomara sange. Mukunda datta told Mahaprabhu, my Lord, you should go ahead and allow all the others to follow. We shall not go with you. Eta shuni Prabhu age shalila shigragati Bujitena parikeho dui Prabhu mati. Mahaprabhu began to walk very swiftly before all the other devotees. No one could understand the real purpose of the two lords, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. Iho kene danda bange teho kene bangaya banganya krode teho ihake doshaya. The devotees could not understand why Nityananda Prabhu broke the danda, why Mahaprabhu permitted him to do so, or why after permitting him, Mahaprabhu became angry. Danda Banga-lila e parama gambir se buje duhara pare jara bhakti dira. The pastime of the breaking of the danda is very deep. Only one whose devotion is fixed upon the lotus feet of the two lords can understand it. Ramanya Dev Gopalera Mahima Edanya Nityananda Bhaktajara Shrota Sri Chaitanya. The glories of Lord Gopal, who is merciful to the Brahmins, are very great. The narration of Sakshi-gopal was spoken by Nityananda Prabhu and heard by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shraddha Jukta Hoya Iha Shuni Jai Jan Achire Milaye Tare Gopala Charan. One who hears this narration of Lord Gopal with faith and love very soon attains the lotus feet of Lord Gopal. Sri Rupa Raghunath Parijaras Chaitanya Charitamrita Kohe Krishnadas. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita following in their footsteps. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya-lila, 5th chapter, describing the activities of Sakshi-gopal. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Ganadana Shiva Sadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna Echai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jahoite Vignana Shabishta Puran Echai Gosai Jarmui Charadas Tastavar Padarenu Mora Panchagras Tader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame Janame More Abhilas Echai Gosai Jabe Braje Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya-lila Korila Pratas Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyan Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamodas Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Juki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Sananta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Sakshi-gopal Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rubanuga Guru Bharga Ki Jai. Namachari Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Rangana Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Rangana Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Premsigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Bhagwat Ki Jai. Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vishvavarenya Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmalacharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Soquel Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan Sham Kuna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Sripad Bhakti Bandhava Puri Maharaj ki jai. All the assembled devotees ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo.
Pavan Janardan Maharaj ki jai.